Ian. Ian's we've been interacting quite a bit as president of the AOC, very important partner to, of course, hosting the games, and retains a seat, of course, on the Brisbane 2032 board. Very much look forward to getting to know you and working with you. So that's my prepared remarks. I'm going to now hand it over to the Premier and then Ian to say a few words, and we'll open up for Q&A. Premier?
Thank you. I just want to say next month marks 10 years to go until Brisbane, Queensland hosts the 2032 Olympics, and we've already launched essentially our talent quest to identify young children out there that could potentially be our future Olympians. And I think the whole state is embracing this fact, and it's going to lead to not just the 10-year boom for Queensland, not just in the 10 years leading up to the Games, but also another 10 years following that. So I'll just leave my remarks there, but the President has hit the ground running, and he's working full-time on this at the moment. I told him it would be part-time, and it's lovely to see Ian. I know Ian's escaped from Tasmania, and I'm quite sure he's going to be spending a lot more time here in our beautiful Sunshine State.
Thanks, Annastacia, and thank you very much for the kind welcome remarks as well. I've enjoyed my trips up to Queensland almost weekly at the moment, so it's very nice to be here.
Honorary Queensland.
Thank you. And I really enjoyed something we did yesterday, which was launching our Indigenous coaching scholarships in conjunction with Indigenous Basketball Australia, which is Paddy Mills's backed organisation. And as part of that, I was able to meet three young Indigenous athletes, First Nations athletes, who were part of the day, and just to see their excitement, their belief that they could be part of this incredible event in 2032. And I think that's really what we're talking about now from an Australian Olympic Committee point of view, is the incredible opportunity that these games present to our young athletes. We want our athletes to dare to dream to be part of the Olympic Games. We want our athletes to be inspired to actually get out there and pursue Olympic sports as we head into 2032. We want our athletes to dream of being the next Cathy Freeman, being the next Paddy Mills, the next Logan Martin, our gold medalist from Tokyo. There's so many inspirational role models out there for our athletes, and I think Brisbane 2032 brings a real focus for us to be able to sell Olympic sports, the dream of Olympic sports, to our athletes. And that's a very, very exciting thing for us to be able to offer our community. I'm very confident that these are going to be really great games. I've had the great pleasure to work with many different organising committees over the years. I've seen many in action, and I love the energy that I'm seeing here, the commitment to really making them an athlete's first games and being the best games that they can be, and building that runway 10 years in and 10 years out. Matt Carroll, our CEO, kindly pointed out that 10 years to go is July 23. But really, we should be looking at this as that's the first day of a 10-year runway to the Games. And there's so many exciting things that will happen along the way. And our job as being part of this organising committee, as being part of the Olympic movement here, is to make sure we use every opportunity we have on each of those days on that 10-year journey to the Games to make full advantage of this incredible opportunity that's been presented to us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. So I think we'll just get some moderated Q&A. So Beck, if you'd like.
Obviously, a change of government, federal government, now means a change of relationship with the committee. Annika Wells, what role will the new minister play? And having spoken with Annika Wells again, it must be great for you that she's a proud Queenslander.
Oh, I think it's fantastic. She's a Queenslander, she's a woman. It's wonderful she's been appointed Sports Minister. And my advice is that she'll be joining us as an observer until she is fully endorsed by the federal government. So she'll be joining us at our first meeting today. So looking forward to having her on board.
Ms. Liveris, we've got a 10-year runway and you've really hit the ground running. How do you pace the committee to ensure that you don't run out of things to do?
I have no fear we're going to run out of things to do. We are going to be spending some time today at today's board meeting putting together a stakeholder engagement framework. We're going to review it. As the Premier has already indicated, and in fact Ian's comments and Lord Mayor's comments, we have so many stakeholders involved here. We really do want to get a coordinated synergy. And you've got to look at my background. I'm all about positive synergy and momentum. So we're going to actually plan implementation here with milestones, really have with all these stakeholder engagements from communities in general, Indigenous communities, to schools. I mean, we have so many stakeholders. The enthusiasm Look, I've been in this, 5 weeks, I've lost track of time, but it is palpable, the enthusiasm. So now containing it and deploying it for positive synergy is what we're going to be doing. And OCOG, Brisbane 2032, is standing up to do that. We have 20, soon to be 22, very, very capable people on that board. I want to utilise all their skills and talents and deploy them. And trust me, these work streams, remember, these are regional games too. I mean, we have Brisbane, but Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, Toowoomba, of course, North Queensland. We've got a lot of communities that we want to engage here. And we have Paris and LA in front of us, and they're doing lots of great work. I'm going to be over there in the next couple of months. I'm going to be sitting down with all of them. Some of the team will come over. Hopefully, between Ian and the Premier and even Lord Mayor, come and join. We're going to soak in what they're doing and what's going right and what's not going right. Net positive games, very important statement for us. Inclusive games, very important statement for us. Digital games, very important statement for us. So those are big enablers that we need to put into our planning that, frankly, subject matter expertise is going to be key. So, look, the Premier said, this is almost full-time, Premier. I am just so enthused by the capability I'm seeing. This part of the state is, in particular, very mobilised. And so I've got to make the whole country feel that. Ian's going to help me with that. But this part of the state, South East Queensland, needs to actually see a plan with milestones. That's what OCOG will do. Look, talent and capability across the business sports world, there's plenty of that out there globally. I have no prejudice on the nationality, but Australian, I'm sure my colleagues on both sides of me will say an Australian would be great. We have talented Australians everywhere. So we will find, against the capability of running this, remember, it's a profit and loss statement. It's a business too, and so we've got to get, the state has got a lot of funds to be deployed, and the federal government has a lot of funds to be deployed. We're going to raise a lot of funds. We have to find $1.7 billion of domestic sponsorships, and the AOC and ourselves are going to be working closely on that. Top sponsors, domestic sponsors. So it's a business, but it's a celebration of community and sports. And those two cost capabilities will find a CEO type person and a team around that person,
That's right.
okay, who can execute against that. Lean at the beginning. We do not want to add a lot of costs ahead of ourselves. 10 years, remember. So we're going to ramp this, but that's what I've done for a living, and so that's what we'll manage together with our partners. I don't know, Premier, do you want to add anything to that, or Lord Mayor?
Oh, I think exactly what you've said. You're going to have a great team around you. It's a 10-year runway. No other, games committee or board has actually had that length of runway. So we have got time on our side, and we can learn from the best, and we can then deliver the best.
And I think we need to be clear, when it comes to the CEO role, this is such a critical role because the board provides that strategic oversight, but the CEO works every single day to make things happen. And so we cannot underestimate or understate the importance of that role. And it needs to be both a local and a global search because we need the very best people. It would be obviously fantastic if it was an Aussie or a Queenslander, but we need the very best, and it will be both a local search and a global search.
Sorry, can we just stick with Olympics, and then once we finish the Olympics, they can leave, and I'm happy to take a few quick questions. Yeah.
Background in innovation manufacturing, you just spoken to open the door to Indigenous people here. Do you see that as an opportunity to develop some sort of innovative ways to teach the world about Australia's Indigenous culture? Because that's something that this games don't have, other games don't have.
Yeah, look, I have high EQ as a personality, and I just got goosebumps with your question. I spent a whole day yesterday listening to that. And I grew up in the Territory. I did come to Queensland, so I've got both in my blood, so to speak. It's very important that we elevate the conversation nationally, and the Olympics can be really a showcase, a lighthouse, to really lift the conversation, to incorporate the magnificent culture of the First Nations people. And I saw it in so many different ways. Talked to me yesterday. I think we are ready, I think, as a country. And I'd love the Olympics to actually, you talked to Ian about, the athletes and celebrating the athletes, but more than the athletes, the culture. And I think it's time, and I'd love to make the Olympics one of the work streams the nation has to integrate Aboriginal and Indigenous people, First Nations culture into our program.
And maybe...
is about to put forward a way to make changes to the Constitution.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get to. There does seem to be a mood to recognise that on a large scale.
Yeah, absolutely. With the statement that Anthony Albanese's committed to, but also too, the Queensland government's pursuing Path to Treaty, so there'll be further announcements about that in the coming months. But also too, when we're talking about all of Queensland embracing the Games, I was just up in far north Queensland. We put in place our $4 million, our First Nations tourism strategy. But also too, I had the opportunity to spend an hour with Uncle Tom going around the Mossman Gorge, hearing first all about the cultural history, the rainforest, what it means for First Nations people. And I want people from all around the world and all around Queensland to experience what I experienced. It was completely moving during Reconciliation Week. And there is so much out there that we can show our tourists, but also our locals, Queenslanders and Australians alike.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask Ms. Liveris, what did you hear from the First Nations people yesterday in that meeting? What was some of the things they contributed?
It was, as the day went by, I had 3 meetings. As the day went by, and you have a press release, as the day went by, we got to truth-telling. A national conversation has to begin, reconciliation, the entire word. So they were truth-telling. They were sharing stories of their grandparents and their great-grandparents. They've researched it. They've understood what happened with the lost generations. They're not looking for a critique. They're looking for building a new Australia, and they want to be part of that. The Premier talked about her experience. They talked about Musgrave Park and what happens when they get together and they share the stories. I heard about songlines. I pride myself as someone who knows Indigenous culture, but I did not know much about songlines. And they talked about how thematically that binds all the various countries, all the various First Nations parts of the country. They talked about business and the question on business, how to actually make this a business opportunity. Transparency of supply chains, which is happening a lot in America. In other words, minorities owning businesses being part of the supply chains on the construction. They talked about it in terms of their children and actually teaching their culture, not just to Indigenous Australians, but to non-Indigenous Australians, and making that part of the school curricula. There's a hunger and a thirst that they're expressing, and they're seeing thematically that the country is ready for it. And look, generationally, that's very true. I can speak to the generation, not my generation, the generation that's following. My generation was in the dark, mainly, especially in the cities, about what really went on. And they talked about that. They talked about urban Australians versus country Australians. And so there's a whole discussion that I heard yesterday that, frankly, I call it part of the narrative. And building that narrative is so important to not just the Olympics, the nation. That's the part that I heard yesterday, and a lot more. So we're going to actually go to some of these communities. Got invited to the Red Dance Show back in Beenleigh, which apparently is have you been to this? It's an amazing 5-year dance and food experience put on, by some of the elders from the Yoruga people. So anyway, all of that, I heard all that yesterday.
Mr. Liveris, last month the Premier wrote to the coalition MPs saying there was no agreement on the committee. Should that have been your job or the Prime Minister's job? Can you just clarify how the appointments?
Look, it's very clearly the Premier's job, and so can I get you to actually say why it's part of the Queensland Act?
Thank you. I'm happy to correct the Courier Mail here because I am on the board, but I'm also the Premier and the Minister for the Olympics. As the Minister for the Olympics, I actually have carriage of the Act, and the appointments go through myself as the Minister. Would have been very happy to answer that question if it was put to me earlier.
The question was put to your office. Even without the risks having been represented from the Australian Electoral Commission, should we at least have waited for the Commonwealth MP to sit in today's board meeting and then wait for our committee to make a decision?
The fact that Annika Wells, the Minister for Sport, is coming along as an observer has been confirmed by the Prime Minister's office. Okay?
Premier, could we, and Lord Mayor, could we get a couple of off topics?
Yeah, sure.
Quickly,
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah, so Andrew,
Are we good?
Yeah,
Are we good?
And
Thank you. I've got a board meeting to run. Please don't hold them up too
we've
long.
only got 3 minutes. So, yeah.
And to the Lord Mayor, both.
Yep.
You're in charge of probably the most volatile state when it comes to whether you're in charge of the city that's very volatile. When it comes to flood recovery and emergencies, there's a line in a yarn this morning, Senator Murray Watt wants to have a discussion with Mr Miles about what the Defence Force will, the role they will play in emergencies, possibly a scale back. He thinks that it takes away from their core duties. For both of you, what would be your response to that? Because they were fantastic during the floods and we couldn't have done it without the military.
Are you happy for me to go first?
Yep.
So I chair the Queensland Disaster Management Committee, and you're absolutely right. Queensland has probably had the most natural disasters, by far. Yes, I think I've presided over about 60 of them. But in relation to the Army has a seat at the table, and that's absolutely critical. So to have the Army sitting there, hearing all of the information, and you're absolutely correct. Having the Army come in and help communities, and I actually went and visited and saw them, the work that they were doing. We just did not have the personnel to be able to do what they did, especially with the cleanups around the debris. It's absolutely integral. Around Goodna, I can remember there is no physical way that people could have come and cleared what they did. And my hat goes off to them. I don't know if you share the same.
But Lord Mayor, you would dispute Senator Murray Watt's comments about they need to look at their core responsibilities. I think that they should be out there helping, and I think that people embrace it. Yeah,
absolutely. And I saw the look on people's face when the Defence Force turned up. It was, you could just see they were overwhelmed. They had their lives completely affected by this, but then when the Defence Force personnel turned up, you could see it was a sense of relief. These are people we know, we can trust. They roll up their sleeves and they help, and they do it in such a professional way. This is incredibly organised, and we could not have done the flood recovery in the way that we did without the support of the Defence Force. There is no doubt about that.
Some flood people in flood-affected areas, they receive their new insurance premiums. They've gone up $5,000 in Paddington. Someone's bill's gone up from $3,000 to $8,000. Their house did not flood. Thousands of Queenslanders will not be able to afford insurance.
Well, look, household pressures are a big issue at the moment, cost of living pressures, but insurance is a matter for the insurance companies and through the federal government. So happy to raise those issues with the federal government.
What about some Queenslanders? I mean, some of them are doing it really tough right now. So what sort of measures that you can do to help them?
We can't do any of those measures. It's their companies, they're independent companies, and the insurance is regulated through the federal government.
Sorry, with the flood recovery, I understand that some of the car parks underneath South Bank is still flooded, the floodgates are still up, there's still water in there. What's happening?
So the South Bank car park is not controlled by the Brisbane City Council. That's controlled by the South Bank Corporation, but that's something I can follow up for you. So yeah. Yes, we've got some great news on Toombul. We've been working hard with the owner of the site and also together with TransLink to get an outcome there. That is a critical interchange in that part of Brisbane, and not only is it an important bus interchange, it interchanges with rail as well at that point. And so from Monday we'll have the interchange fully open and operational again. So a great outcome, and that's an important public transport interchange.
Yes, I have, and we are very concerned with those new revelations. It changes everything. So we're deep in conversation, and we'll have further things to say on Monday.
And will you make changes to everything?
Sorry, I said yesterday everything's on the table, and in light of all those new revelations, I think you'll see a very big announcement on Monday.
Sorry, everyone, about to start. Sorry.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Have a nice day.